Hello, everyone, and welcome back to day 3 of our first grade language arts lesson. So, just to recap what we did on day 1 and day 2, on Monday or day 1, we read the story of the Three Little Pigs and we answered the text dependent questions. While we were reading that story, we also figured out who was the narrator who was telling that story. We decided that in that story, the author was the narrator of that story. Likewise, on yesterday, day 2 or Wednesday, we talked about the true story of the Three Little Pigs. And we also answered the text dependent questions. And we figured out that in that story, it was the character who was the narrator of that story. The character used words like I, my, we, words like that to let us know that they were actually in the story. So today we are going to continue with our same standard, which is identify who is telling the story at various points in a text. But we will be switching our I can statement. So today when we finish this lesson, we should be able to compare stories told from different perspectives. Our I can statement for today is I can compare stories told from different perspectives. Okay, so like we just said, or like I just said, we today we will be comparing and contrasting two stories. Our I can statement was I can compare stories from different perspectives. So we will be comparing the Three Little Pigs and the true story of the Three Little Pigs. Now, before we jump into comparing the two stories, first we have to know what does it mean to compare and what does it mean to contrast. Okay? So here's our anchor chart for today on compare and contrast. And we're going to start right here. When you compare and contrast, you think about what is the same and what is different. So when you hear the word compare, it means tell me what is the same. But when you hear the word contrast, I want to know what is different. To compare and contrast these stories, we're going to be using a Venn diagram. This Venn diagram, I know we've seen it in class before, but let's just go over it again just in case we've forgotten. When we use a Venn diagram, we have two circles and they overlap in the middle. On this side, for this example, we're comparing and contrasting dogs and cats. So over here on this side, I'm going to put everything that I know about a dog. Over here, I'm going to put everything I know about a cat. And then in the middle, I'm going to put what I know about both of them. Something that they share, what is the same about both of them. So over here on this side, in this side, I'm going to put what is different about a dog. Over this side, it's going to be what's different about a cat. And in the middle is going to be what is the same. So on these two sides, we are talking about what's different, so that's contrast. And in the middle, we're talking about what's the same, and that's compare. Okay? So let's look at this side for the dog. Dogs bark. Dogs chase cats. Dogs like to play. Dogs need to be given a bath to get clean. Those are things that are only for dogs. On the other side, cats. Cats meow. They chase mice. They like to sleep. And they can lick themselves clean. Those are only about cats. None of these things dogs do. None of these things cats do. But when we look in the middle, we're looking at things that both animals do. So right here, that's why there's a dog and a cat. So both of them are types of pets and both of them have fur. Those are things that are the same. So when we start our Venn diagram, that is what we will be doing with the true story of the Three Little Pigs and the story of the Three Little Pigs. Okay, so here is our diagram, our Venn diagram. And on this side, we're going to be talking about things that we read in the Three Little Pigs. On this side, we're going to be talking about things that happen in the true story of the Three Little Pigs. And in the middle, we're going to be talking about things that we noticed that were the same. Okay? So, the first thing that I'm going to write for the Three Little Pigs that I noticed is that the author was the narrator, because that's one thing that we talked about this week, is that author as the narrator. Now, if you want to get your paper at home and you want to follow along with me like we do in class, you can. You can get your piece of paper, draw your 2 circles, make sure you leave room in the middle for you to write. Parents, if you would like to print this, if you have a printer and you would like to print this, I will link it so that you can click on it and have a copy of it yourself. But it's not mandatory at all. Okay? So the next thing, the true story of the 3 Little Pigs, we had a character as the narrator. Okay? Because that was one thing, well, those are things that were different between the 2 stories. And the first thing that we pointed out was that in this story, the 3 Little Pigs, there was the author narrator. In the true story of the 3 Little Pigs, there was the character as the narrator. Okay? What's something else that was different about 3 Little Pigs than from the true story of 3 Little Pigs? In the 3 Little Pigs, the big bad wolf, he huffed and puffed. Huffed and puffed. He huffed and puffed to blow the pig's house down. Now, in the true story of the 3 Little Pigs, he did not huff and puff to blow their house down. He sneezed. He huffed and snuffed, and he ended up sneezing, and it blew their houses down. So we're going to write, he sneezed and blew their houses down. So do you see how I'm comparing the things that are different? Or right now I'm contrasting because these are different between the true story of the 3 Little Pigs and the 3 Pigs. He sneezed and blew their houses down. Now, those are things that are different. Right here we have the character as the narrator, and we also have that he sneezed and blew the house down. And on this side for the 3 Little Pigs, we have the author as the narrator, and he huffed and puffed to blow their houses down. Now that we have some things that are different about the stories, let's think about what was the same in both stories. I know one thing that was the same in both stories is that even though both stories have different ways of how the houses were blown down, in both stories the houses were the wolf blew the houses down. Okay, so in both stories the houses were blown down. Okay, and now let's think of something else. What was something else that was the same about both stories? In both stories, the pigs had houses that were made of houses made of straw, sticks, and bricks. This was also something else that was the same between both stories. Okay? So now that you've watched me, and maybe you followed along too at home, now that you have watched me, now it's your turn. Okay? We went through and we talked about things that were different about both stories, and we talked about things that are the same in both stories. Now it's your turn to go to the form below and answer some questions. There's not a Venn diagram, but there are questions that will help you compare and contrast the two stories of the Three Little Pigs. Don't forget to write your name at the top of the form so we will know who the form is coming from. Okay, see you all tomorrow.